Hi and welcome to the latest episode of Hidden Gems with Mr. Tickle. Today we are going to take a look at the long forgotten Reedley Colliery, as this month, May 2020, is the 60th anniversary of the pit's closure. I think it's a great shame the memory of Reedley Colliery is fading, as it was a major employer for the area at the time, was a large landmark, and also in later years Reedley became a laboratory pit which trialled many new forms of mining equipment, including the American system using shuttle cars and roof bolts. The shafts were sunk by the executors of Colonel John Hargreaves in 1879 in order to work the Arley mine at a depth of 210 yards. The Dandy and King mines were also worked after 1910. Known locally as Barden Pit because it was near Barden Recreation Ground, Reedley Colliery was linked underground with Bank Hall and Wood End pits. The latter shaft, which was halfway between the bottom of Barden Lane and Duck Pit's sewage works, is still visible today. From early in the 20th century, Reedley was linked to Wood End Colliery, and from 1955 to 1960 it included Fence No. 2 Drift. Marked for closure in the 1959 Review of the Industry, Reedley succumbed in May 1960. Its site, off Barden Lane, is now occupied by a ready-mixed concrete plant. Another interesting fact about Reedley is shortly after its closure in 1961, parts of Brian Forbes' award-winning movie Whistle Down the Wind were filmed close by, clearly showing the pit and Barden recreational area, which also included my great-grandfather Joe Clough's allotment. But we'll take a look at those scenes a little later on in this video. So now let's go and have an explore and take a look at the site, see what we can find. I've just entered the site from the top of Heald Road through the trees. And as we come around the first corner, we enter a clearing. And as you can see here, we have a ridge. This ridge tells me that there was a building once stood here. These will be the foundations of the building underneath. And I think from the photographs that we've found, you can see a large rectangular building roughly in this area, so I would guess that's what it is. So we'll make our way across this field now, and I'll take you into the next clearing. So as you can see, the second clearing is much larger, and this is where the main works of the pit would have been. The winding wheel would have been over here, where all the carts were loaded was over here, and as you can see in the photos, some quite large buildings in this area. Quite a densely built site, to be honest. But what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to work my way all the way down the back of these trees between here and the cement works, and just see if we can find any evidence of any of the buildings that were here. Unfortunately now, I worked my way all the way down the back of these trees in the picture and found no evidence whatsoever. The area has been extensively landscaped and the grounds for the cement works have been put in, which has obviously removed all evidence. But let's work our way through the north section and see if we can find any evidence there. Looking at the pictures that I've managed to obtain, this seems to be the area where the winding wheel was. I've had a real good look in these trees. There's no evidence, but I think it's going to become clear why in a moment as we walk down this path. All this area has obviously been landscaped. They must have knocked down the workings, made hardcore rubble out of it, spread it about with a bulldozer, and then put topsoil and planted trees over the top, and obviously to make this recreational area, which is a shame really, because it's more or less completely hidden past the history that was here. It's only the tiny hints that sparked my interest in finding out what was here. Even local people that I spoke to, such as my father-in-law, although they were here and they remember the workings and everything going on, they don't sort of remember exactly how it was laid out or how it looked compared to today. So as you can see, we have quite a large landscaped area that would have been where the workings of the mine were. Very difficult to see anything, but we'll keep on searching. I'm going to have a look down the canal bank here now and just see if I can find any evidence of the mine. Unfortunately, there are very few photos available showing this angle of the pit, but I think if you look at this photo, it's pretty clear that bank isn't there and there's been quite extensive landscaping done, otherwise the buildings would have sat much higher. We're just at the top left hand corner of the field now, just on the side of the canal, you can see through the trees there. It's quite a steep bank here. I just thought I'd have a walk down and see if I could see anything. Obviously, big bulldoze pile here as part of the landscaping, and I'm just wondering what it was that they perhaps bulldozed. And possibly, yes, just as I expected. It's a humongous pile of coal. Hey! Is that my first find? Tons of it. I am stood on a pile of Reedley Colliary coal. Won't mean much to anybody, but to me, that's a find. So I've just been working my way further down the canal bank. I didn't find anything in there, but I've now come to the southwest corner of the field because I knew that this ventilation was here. Maybe it's ventilation for the mines, or they installed it because they covered up so much underground, who knows. It doesn't appear to be very deep, or if it is, it's now full of sticks and twigs and sediment and all sorts of stuff. Perhaps that's one for the other lads to stick a camera down if they have an underwater one. Could even be a mine shaft, who knows. But we'll keep on searching and see what else we find. So if we take a look at this photograph, where the red X is roughly where the vent I've just shown you is located. Any suggestions? I'm not that sure myself. Okay, a bit of success. I finally found evidence of buildings being here in the past. So I'm just a little bit further down the canal bank, as you can see. Well, about 50 yards away from where I found the coal heap. And this is clearly evidence where the field was landscaped. As you can see, there's bricks everywhere, and stone, concrete. This is some form of concrete, as you can see, so that's obviously, I don't know, a yard. Perhaps it's been broken up rather than a building. There's all sorts there, so you can see there must be tons of stuff buried under there. There must be stuff. I just wonder what didn't get removed from the buildings and from the workings and got left and just bulldozed into a pile. I wonder. Let's have a quick look and see if there's anything just knocking about on the surface. Lots of bricks, like we say. Enfield brick, deer play, quarry. Interesting. I've never seen a deer play brick before. They're usually Accrington bricks, and that's a different works. Top of Manchester Road in Burnley, on the way over to Bacup. So I shall look that up. Actually, something perhaps for a video in the future. Have a walk up to the deer play and see if we can do a quick video. Ooh, look there. There's Poppy. Hang on one moment. Pop! Oh, you're up there. Good girl. Look. What's that? Blimey, that's loose, but it's stuck fast. Let's just see if I can do that. try and put the phone down one moment. I can use two hands. An old timber. Not the greatest of finds, but evidence. Where's my dog? Well, that's what we got. Some sort of, what's this? That is a very worn bearing. Would have been bolted like that onto whatever. You can see the hole there for the bolt. That's this side is sheared off. Shaft would have gone through there, and this brass would have worked as a bearing or a bush. You can see there, very worn, and split perhaps, I'm not sure. Egg shaped. So that really should have been replaced. Now, is that an indication that Reedley Colliary was falling into a bit of disrepair? Maybe they knew the end was coming and weren't investing in expensive brass parts, or is that an acceptable tolerance? Being an ex-engineer, I can't see that, but perhaps. That's quite a find. Yeah, then what's that? That's a sinkhole. Maybe a drain cap, or I tell you where I've seen things like that before, in men's urinals. And perhaps I've found the pit top. Apologies, the battery went there on the old phone that I'm recording on, and due to the nature of those finds, I couldn't go back and do that one again. So what I was actually going to say there is perhaps I've found the site's toilets. Now, my research has led me to find that I'm not far away from the truth there, as Reedley was the first pit in East Lancashire to have pit head baths, and only the second in the whole of the country. Real luxury that, I must have really improved the miners' quality of life, being able to go home clean. Now, these baths were opened in November 1914 under the Coal Mines Act of 1911, Clause 77. The buildings, which cost £2,000, were paid for by Sir James Thursby. They had facilities for 180 men, and the shower stalls were made of slate with concrete floors so that they could be swilled down without any difficulty. The centre of the building had a pulley system on which the men raised their day clothes up and out of the way before going down the pit, and then in the evening the pit clothes were placed on the rack and sent back up in the same manner out of the way. Really, that must have been a fantastic thing for Reedley to have back then, and I'm really chuffed I've found that, because it's led me to do the research to find out that interesting fact. Another reason why we need to keep the memory of Reedley alive. Also, whilst doing my research, I watched the film Whistle Down the Wind, and in this scene you can clearly see a broken minecart with a very similar bearing fastened underneath. The only differences are that I can see is mine has a bolt which makes it much easier to replace the centre bush when worn, something Reedley hadn't done. So what a find, I'm really pleased with that. Let's see what else we can find. I've just worked my way a little bit further up the canal bank, and huge success. Finally found a proper indication of what was here. So I have found the wharf. This is the canal wharf. Now, I'm going to cut the video short before I show you too much, and I'm going to bring a then and now picture up from the opposite side of the canal. So I've done a then and now photo, here it comes, it will give you an idea of what this area used to look like, and then I'm going to talk you through how it is now in the picture. Okay, so as you've now seen in the photograph, where I am stood here, you can see a pile of bricks that I'll show you a bit better in a moment. There was a footbridge that went across, and the barges used to moor here and obviously be loaded with the coal. I imagine that the moorings would have gone quite a way up. You can see this stone wall here. This does actually run quite a long way up the canal bank, and same that way as well. So I can imagine it being quite a busy little wharf at some point. Now I found these. So there's two wooden posts that are very, very rotten and old, and this huge steel thing, whatever it may be, who knows, maybe somebody can tell me. So there was a structure here, or maybe it's just part of the footbridge that was here as shown on the photograph, but there's evidence. Now if I step down here, Poppy's found an old ball she's killing. As I step down here, boom, there's your steps for the footbridge. So where I am now, I'd be stood in the water. There's the wall that you can see in the photograph. I'll bring it up again at the end of this video just so that you can see and compare. And there is that wall, again with the steps for the footbridge. Now if I just continue to walk out to what was the canal and now is just muddy vegetation, try not to get myself stuck here. Whoop. Oh, that's a bit soggy. We've had a bit of rain, haven't we? Buggy. Careful, Joe. Careful, Joe. Here we go. Here's the other side. The steps have gone. So that's the rest of it. I'm literally standing on tree roots here to stay afloat. That's the other side. So this would be the wharf. As you can see, it's quite a size. Whoa, that stinks. Let's get back before I end up waist deep. I love this photograph. There's so much going on in it when you look carefully. I like how when you look at the first barge, it's loaded and sat very, very low in the water. Yet when you look at the one that's waiting to be loaded, how much higher it sits because of the weight of the coal that's in the other. But also, if we just zoom in and have a close look at the footbridge, I think it's pretty safe to say the two wooden posts that we found and the metal post, that supports for that footbridge where it goes up into the mine. I think it goes a little bit further back than what you can actually see in the picture, and that's why those supports were there. So again, I've just worked my way along a little bit further along the canal bank. Not really found anything. There's plenty of lumps of concrete. Again here there's another big pile of bulldozed rubble, which is obviously the old buildings. Actually some really nice lumps of stone, to be quite honest. You know what I mean? If that were cleaned up, that's what houses were built out of 200, 300 years ago, and buildings. Absolutely nothing, but there is. Oh, there's something down here. This is the farthest south point of what was the site. I'm just coming up to where the canal meets the railway. Let's see if there's anything down here. What this pipe carries, water pipe maybe, gas pipe. Perhaps fed the old gas tower that used to be down Stoneyholme that way. Oh no! Oh no! No, that's sad. So I had a really good look around the site. I didn't find anything more from the scooter. What a shame. Right, so I haven't found any scooters, no Vespers unfortunately, so I don't know what's happened to that, but I'm going to take that home. I'm going to put a post on Facebook, see if I can find its owner. Sorry to see that, but what I have found is these. Now, I don't know if anybody can help me get an answer, but look at this. That's sort of linkage. I've never seen anything like that before in my life. Can anybody answer it? Some more here. Whoa, what's that? Whoa, it's got glass inside it. Right, what would be metal, very heavy gauge, linked like a chain, and have glass inside it? Come on internet, tell me what that is. That is something unusual. What have I found there? I'll tell you what I'm going to do, I'm just going to throw that over there out to sight. People to find in future, and nobody takes it, weighs it in for scrap. I know calling Black Label kind of thing, isn't it? I don't drink, so guys, when was Carling last called Black Label? Is that a modern can? Is it an old can? Who knows? Alright, nothing too exciting. Let's get this fender home and put something on the internet. So since finding the strange linked item, I did a little research and found that another feature at the pit was a 558 yard long Sandvik steel band belt conveyor, which took the coal underground from Reedley to the Reedley Colliary washery. This conveyor worked against a gradient of 1 in 3 and remarkably for the day also weighed the coal at the same time. Reedley pit was also one of the first to use fluorescent lighting underground. So I wonder, is that part of that link chain system? Are the glass sections, was there an electrical charge put down the chain that illuminated it so that it could be seen in the darkness? Interesting, I don't know. I'd like to speak to a surviving miner that maybe can answer this, because I would really love to find out. So we're now back at the point where we started, and just down here on the right hand side there's some great evidence of the chain link tramway that ran to Bank Hall. So let's go and take a look. So I've just made my way down through the trees, and here we have some fantastic evidence, untouched evidence that the pit was here. There's 3 brick stanchions with metal track supports on the top, 2 at either side of the railway and 1 a little bit further over in the background. And what these stanchions were for, they supported the chain link tramway that ran between here and Bank Hall washery. And they're absolutely untouched. There's the last little bit left on the site. So what I'd like to do is just pop the camera through this fence, just see if we can take a bit better look. There we go. And as I say, there's 3, all in a line. The track would have gone over the railway, over into the neighbouring field, and then disappeared down a drift underground, making its way to Bank Hall. A lovely find. So I got home and I did a little bit of research after that video, and bingo, look at this photograph I found, which clearly shows the cart up there at a height, being loaded, ready to go down to Bank Hall to the washery. So you can just imagine now a track up in the air with these carts going along, perhaps like a monorail that you would have seen at an amusement park back in the day. Probably that was the amusement park for the local kids. I know it certainly would have been for me. But let's carry on looking. Heading out to the site now, coming up to where the entrance of the pit was, which is now the entrance of the cement works, of course. It's funny how it's kind of like a new lease of life, but looks similar to the old pit. the mixing and loading tower at the cement works. This is a modern day version. So I thought now would be the perfect time to show you some photos from the film Whistle Down the Wind that all the Burnley locals know was filmed around here. As you can see, times have changed immensely. The pit's long gone, that's all green, the park's long gone, there was Barden High School that I went to there, also long gone. The campus has been built, which is now shut down. Could that also be due to go? And also you can see my great-grandfather Joe's allotment, something that I discovered whilst doing this research. I'd never seen a photograph of his allotment, so what a brilliant thing to find, and it really has made this video worthwhile for me. Great to see what it was like back in the day. So as we now head over the bridge, I'm now roughly stood where the young lad in the film was, and as he leaned over the wall watching the train go by, that was his view. And this used to be old garages here, as you can see in the film. And on the other side of the track we've got a good clear view of the stanchion for the chain tramway. And now this was where the park was, which I'll show a picture of in the film. Unfortunately though, the film clearly shows that the tramway wasn't in place in 1961, so whether that had been closed, pulled down when the pit was closed in 1960, I'm not sure. But I'm now sort of stood exactly where the park was in the film. The tramway would have run across in front of me here and then disappeared down a drift heading towards Reedley Colliary. There's very little evidence left that shows that the tramway was here. There is another stanchion that I'm going to show you in a moment. But the main reason for me taking this video was to show the changes in the land since the film was made in 1961. That's the third stanchion there, and it sort of going off the metalwork on top, it ran in a diagonal, did the tramway, so I headed over here in this direction. And would have disappeared underground over there where the new housing estate is. So I'm now going to make my way down to close to the Wood End Colliery, because that's the site of the second Reedley shaft. Let's go and see if we can find any evidence of that existing. So for the last part of my video, I've just come down into what I think is known as Bluebell Woods, just to try and see if I can find any evidence of the second mine shaft for Reedley. Now, some people may jump on and say, oh, that's Wood End, that's Wood End. Well, I've since found out that there are some remains of a second shaft for Reedley that aren't Wood End Colliery, because there's nothing apparently visible for Wood End, it's all underground, whereas this is above ground. Now, I've tried to, from the information I can find, locate where that were, and the only indication I can find of something is here. Local people know this very well. There's a bridge across the river. Now this bridge here is identical metalwork to what the bridge was at the wharf over the canal at Reedley, so it tells me the same people have obviously built it probably at the same time, so I'm definitely thinking this area is linked here. Now, having a good look around, there's not much to see other than that stonework there. There's some sort of strange hole in the wall with a roof. Could that be leading to the shaft? I'm not sure. Maybe somebody local may be able to answer that for me. And also, whilst looking round, I have managed to find some pretty big lumps of coal. Now, that was a big chunk that literally I tried to pick it up and it just crumbled. It absolutely just crumbled in my hands. You can see there. So that's always been soaking in the river for a long time. But there's tons of it about. So here, you know, you don't get coal without a mine, I would imagine. So think I am onto something, so I'm just going to have another quick look about it, and then I'll do another video and see what I find. So I'm just walking over the bridge now to the site what I believe was where the second shaft was. I could be completely wrong here, and if I am, I really do hope somebody steps forward and tells me and lets me know what this really is. To me it sounds like there's two forms of water flowing from somewhere. I think possibly a stream coming that way maybe, and then maybe something coming through this part this way, and it sort of sounds like it swirls together here. I can hear two swirls of water definitely, and then it goes somewhere. Where does it go? Does anybody know? It doesn't flow into the river. Where is all that water going? Now, we do know Reedley pit was connected to Brow Head pit, and my dad used to tell me that the pits were flooded. He watched what went on when they closed the mines up there and knocked the buildings down. It was him who told me about the two locomotives that are apparently still down there, and all the carts and everything, but it was too expensive and they weren't worth lifting to the surface, so they just closed the mines up and then allowed them to flood. Could this be what's flooding the mine? Does anybody know? Is there anybody who was around at the time when they closed this, who lived down Wood End near here, or had an interest and watched, or even, I don't know, maybe part of the demolition crew, the miners maybe, who remember? Please leave your comments below in the comments section. Let me know if you do know anything. It would be very interesting to find out, because it's a shame to end the whole video on a mystery, but at least we know where the number one shaft was. We've found some evidence that it was there. We now know what the site looks like, and now forever when I look up Field Road, I've got a ghost image in my head of what it used to be like. That my great grandfather's allotment that's shown in the photograph, my mum telling me that she used to stand on the bridge like the lad in the film and watch the trains go by. You know, I love that kind of thing. I love knowing about my history. I love knowing about my local history and my family history. You know, I wasn't alive. My great grandfather died the year before I was born, so I never saw his allotment. So that's a little bit of something I found that I wasn't expecting to find. It's made the whole video worthwhile. It's a shame to say it's 60 years since the mine's closed, but I'm glad I've made this video. Hope it's found it interesting. If you liked it, please like, share and subscribe to my channel. Somebody just walked past, thinks I'm a complete nutter. So yeah, thank you once again for watching. Hope you find it interesting.